Barney is a really great character. For now, I won't actually explain who Barney is because maybe it's a bit of a spoiler. I don't know. I worked out pretty quickly who Barney was, but I will discuss it at the end with a spoiler warning just in case it's not too obvious. My Friend Barney is the second segment of the 20th episode of the second season of Rugrats. And Chuckie is telling Tommy Fillendale about his new friend Barney. And Barney sounds really great, but the babies want to meet him, and Chuckie keeps making up excuses for why he can't, such as he's not allowed to cross the road, and his parents aren't allowed to cross the road, so I'm not entirely sure how they got to Chuckie's house to visit him, but he keeps making excuses, and Tommy is desperate to meet Barney. And he knows that Chuckie and Barney are going to the park, and there's this adorable, heartbreaking scene where Chuckie, or Tommy rather, is holding his little bucket and spade, looking out the window with tears in his eyes, desperate for Didi to take him to the park. And it's just so heartbreaking that this little baby just wants to go to the park. It's so beautiful. And I have to say, it's a really good episode. What I loved as well, this seems like a minor thing, but at the start of the episode, they're talking about Tommy's ball. And I love that ball because I used to have various Rugrats play sets and figurines and things, and a couple of them came with a little version of that ball. So I'm really glad that they actually focused on it for once and said, hey, this is a prop you need to pay attention to because some of the merchandise includes it. It's a small thing, but I loved it. Very well written episode. The line about going to prison for not eating broccoli I thought was pretty good. A nice way to try and encourage children to eat their vegetables. Chaz also mentioned Chuckie's mother. It was only in passing, it was very brief, but I don't know if he's mentioned her before. He might have done, but certainly she doesn't come up too frequently, which is a bit strange because I feel like he would make efforts to keep her memory alive for Chuckie's sake, but maybe he does that when nobody else is around. That would make a lot of sense. The scene under the rug, I love how that was animated. It kind of made my skin crawl a bit because it looked really bizarre, just these little bumps under the rug crawling around. But it was very well animated. Definitely a very well animated episode with a really great pacing and a really nice story. So, spoilers, from now I'm going to explain who Barney is. I do feel like it was obvious, but what's obvious to a 31-year-old might not be obvious to, maybe a 4, 5, 6-year-old watching the show. Barney is actually Chuckie's imaginary friend. And I love that. I had an imaginary friend growing up, so I think there's definitely an element of relatability there for anybody who has an imaginary friend. But what I love about it is that it's saying for any, there are people who think that children shouldn't have imaginary friends and that they should have real friends, which, I mean, yes, real friends are important, but as we see with Chuckie, the imaginary friend, Barney, gave Chuckie the confidence he needed to do things that Chuckie would not otherwise do. For example, he went into the dark closet, they went under the rug, things that would be scary to Chuckie, but with Barney it gave him this confidence, and it's almost like it's a reflection of the part of him that wants to be adventurous, but that's suppressed because of his fear of the dark and the unknown. But by giving Barney these qualities that Chuckie doesn't have on the surface, it allows Chuckie to unlock those qualities. And as I've mentioned before, I love watching Rugrats for the nostalgia, but I also love watching it for the child psychology. Not that I'm a child psychologist, but I've read a lot of books about early years education and milestones and things, and certainly this episode really speaks to me on that level. Yeah, there are definitely parents who think that, imaginary friends are problematic. And yes, they can be when a child relies too heavily on them and neglects real relationships, but they do have a lot of benefit, and we see that with Chuckie and Barney, and it's really moving and great to see that Chuckie has found a way to unleash his more adventurous and more confident side because it's otherwise suppressed by fear. Now, that's not to say going forward Chuckie will be more confident. I would imagine Barney will never be mentioned again. But as a one-time episode, yeah, it's pretty great. I really enjoyed it.